then the Messianic age would come. So it might be, even if we didn't want to, that the entire Jewish people and maybe the whole world will now observe Shabbat. So maybe I'm not sure I'm hopeful about that, but at least I don't know. I'm an optimist by nature. So see that, yeah.
Maybe just saying that for you to know that we are recording this session, so just be aware.
And this is all that's here, just these people.
No, 11 people.
11.
And maybe do you want to say a few words? How will the webinar look like today?
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do in the next 45 minutes. I'm going to talk about the Parsha. So if you look in your Bible, you can look at Exodus chapter 32. We also sent it out to you. Can you see it on the screen?
You can maybe just, before we see it on the screen, I will share my screen so you will be able to see it, that we're going to have this teaching for around an hour. Then we will experiment with putting all of you in smaller groups so there can be a bit of a discussion of how are you and what do you think about the parasha, maybe a little break. And then we're going to have another section with Michael Stanislavski, who is also here with us, but actually in New York. We were very much looking forward to have him in Odessa with us. Unfortunately, we will have to wait for that in person. But for now, he will speak about different Jewish identities that came up in Odessa, and that we felt that it's also very relevant for us today. That will be also around an hour, and there will be also some time for you to have a short discussion afterwards. So that's the plan for today. And now I share my screen.
So I never did this before on Zoom, but I'm hoping people will have comments. And then we can do it even this way in an interactive way. So I don't know if that's possible, but
we will try.
We'll try. Otherwise, I think I'll be teaching into the great void of the river, and I won't know what I'm doing. Almost every week, I say that the Parsha of the week is my favorite Parsha, because by the time it gets to be my favorite part of the week, the weekend it is my favorite Parsha. But this Parsha actually is my favorite Parsha of the whole Torah. It's a truthful remark. And I was thinking about why. First of all, there's the great section which I have taught in Potroj, and I've taught other places, which is when Moses basically asked to see the kavod, to see the perceptible presence, to see the being of God in chapter 33. And God says, you can't see my face, but you can see my back. I'm going to study that in detail in a few minutes. But I always think that for me, is in some ways the climax of the Torah. It's not all the thunder and lightning on Mount Sinai where God is revealing the Ten Commandments. It's really the personal expression of the search for meaning in life and the search for real understanding of the world. It's that the Jewish lens, the Jewish idea that of why one does all these things, of what the special contribution of the Jewish people have been to the world. It's to try and see the world clearly, not through a mystical channel from a messianic figure, not through only a revelation, but really through the disciplining of your mind, through the expression of clear language, and of the compassion that you need. So many of these things are found in other traditions, but I would say that is ours. If we could clarify our language, if we could clarify our vision, and we could try and build the world based on that vision, which would be a world of justice, then that is the ultimate essence of the Jewish community and actually the Jewish contribution to the world. It was asked by the philosopher Crossmal, and they said, most peoples of the world disappear after they contribute their greatest intellectual achievement, cultural achievement, political achievement. Greece gave democracy, and then it kind of disappeared, and Rome gave the civic society, then it kind of collapsed. Why has Judaism persisted? And Chochmah said, because we haven't yet contributed our idea, which is the idea itself. And so, in some ways, this parsha is about the idea itself, and how one does that. And it's very interesting in the way that it struggles with a visualization of God, right? On almost no other parsha and no other moment of the week, by the way, do you see as much struggle to visualize what God really looks like. I say the week because Friday night, particularly after the 16th and 17th century, the way we do the prayers that we do in the synagogue was very much about the visualization of God. I would say that there was a backlash against that, so probably you don't know that. There was, I think, a concerted effort in the 19th and 20th century to block that idea, but that is, I believe, the idea. So that's the coherence of the two sections of this talk. Good? Yes? Shake your heads. Okay. Comments, questions?
Like you said earlier that already Maimonides said that God is not the dear old teddy with long beard. So then how does this fall back to visualization?
I completely agree with that. I think that Maimonides does love this section as well. I think it's his favorite section. There's no chapter in the Bible that Maimonides quotes more than chapter 33 of the book of Exodus. So he has his take on it. But no doubt he would have been against the great, drama that unfolds after his life for the Friday night prayers. I think the question is correct, and I think Maimonides would have been against that. But the fact is that Maimonides privileged thought over everything else, except maybe nature. So a clear vision of nature, a clear vision of the world, the way the world is, also would have attracted Maimonides, and he certainly believed in that. But he wasn't a Kabbalist, and the Friday night service is extremely Kabbalistic. Can't really understand it in any other way. The Friday night prayers that we say, particularly before the evening service, overwhelm the evening service, and they are highly imaginative and very visual. So I quite agree. I don't think Maimonides would have been happy about that, or he would have reinterpreted it in a way that he was happy about. But this, a great act in the middle of it would have disturbed him. So I appreciate the question. Other comments? So let's start. The first line that we have is Exodus 31, verse 18. You see where I am? Yes? Shake your heads. Good. Okay. I think. Yeah. I'll read here. I think it's the same. Should be the same. No. Yes. Yes, it is. The first sentence is the end of chapter 31. It says, when he finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he, God, gave Moses the 2 tablets of the pact, stone tablets inscribed with the finger of God. What is this about? Anybody? Anybody out there in? Oh, Robert, you have to I can see you're speaking, but you have to unmute.
Yeah, 10 Commandments, the Torah.
Yeah, it's the 10 Commandments, I think. And what's interesting about that?
They're written by God.
Yeah,
by
this
his
is the. Yeah, more. I think they're written by God. So, what would you imagine if you read this? That God does have a finger, contrary to Maimonides. Maimonides says that's a silly idea. It's a metaphor, but I mean, if you look at me, but Etzba Elohim, it looks like a finger to me. So it's at least misleading, if not completely wrong. And second of all, this is a very physical object, right? I mean, if you bring down the 10 Commandments and you say this was written by the finger of God, and that God for the last 2 weeks has been giving us details about this contraption called the tabernacle, how high, what jewels, what's the coat everything about it, you would say that this is a very physical representation of God. You're going to see that Ten Commandments and the armor of God, and you're going to say to yourself, well, that's the doorway to God. This is the way to see the face of God. Good? All right, I'm going to keep reading. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that man Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him. All right, what's this about? You know, Moses has been gone. He'd been gone before for 3-day periods, but now he's been gone for 40 days and 40 nights. And he said, I'll be back in 40 days and 40 nights. But he didn't say exactly, right? Like in the morning, in the afternoon, maybe I'll come back late at night. You know, and the people are waiting for him because they've been slaves for all these years. Now they're in the desert. They need Moses. Otherwise, what will happen to them? They'll die. They don't know where they're going. They don't know how to get there. They don't know if the water's going to come. They don't know anything. And so the people are agitated about Moses not coming. And beyond that fact, they have been used to seeing representations of God, right? If you go to, I went to Luxor in Egypt once, and all you do is you see representations of God. So for them to lose the ability to think about God so quickly in representational form, be quite surprising. Right? I think that would be quite surprising. So here we have, first he has the 10 Commandments, which is very physical, and now Moses is coming down and he's saying, and the people are waiting for him, and so they say to Aaron, Moses' brother, come, make us a god. They don't say to him, make us an idol. They don't say, make us a little calf. None of that stuff. They just say, make us a god. You know, we need one. We're scared. Aaron says to them, not them, but Aaron says to them, okay, everybody hear me? Yeah? Aaron says to them, take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he took them and he cast a mold and he made it into a molten calf. And they exclaimed, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Could they have possibly thought that? I don't know. Such a dumb idea, right? How could they have thought that? I mean, they're already out of Egypt. They just made the God. Would they look at this this molten thing and say, this is God who brought you out of Egypt? If they had just said, this is God, maybe. But to say, this is God who brought you out of Egypt when they were already out of Egypt, it stretches your imagination. Let's say that. So the question I always have at this moment is, what's the sin of the golden calf? What do you think the sin is? And actually, I don't know the answer to this question. So I don't know if we can do this online, but maybe we can try and have a bit of a conversation. What do you think? Anybody? What's the sin of the golden calf? People all know the story, basically. It was in the movies. It's great in the movies. If you've never seen the movie, The 10 Commandments, with Charlton Heston, the golden calf, great scene. Yeah, it's on Netflix. You can go get it. I don't know, maybe it's on Prime. Whatever it's on. I suggest it to you. Anybody? Any of the artists out there? Like, I don't know, what is the sin of the golden calf? Did they really think that the golden calf was God? Anybody? I'm not good at picking up cues when anybody has something to say, so please speak. Robert?
No idea, really.
Do people know what I'm talking about? Is it clear now? Yeah?
Not really. I don't understand the question.
What's the sin?
What?
If God is angry and Moses are angry that we built the golden calf, instead it was God, what is he angry about? What's the sin?
He said it's forbidden to worship idols.
It doesn't say that they worshipped the golden calf. They just exclaimed it.
Well, like they built it as a god.
I know everybody always says it's an idol, right? You're not allowed to worship idols, but it doesn't exactly say that they worship idols. He didn't ask you to do anything.
But God also said that God also said that the Jews didn't supposed to have another God except of him.
I know, but then why did he let them have the 10 commandments, these two pieces of stone that came from the finger of God? Wouldn't they think that was also kind of God? That's why I put it in the...
Another God. It
Another
doesn't
God.
mean this is a God. They don't supposed to have two gods.
I know, so wouldn't they have thought that there's one God above and maybe one God in the 10 commandments, maybe one God in the calf? I don't know. And maybe more than that, maybe it was just art. You know, in my house here and probably all of your houses, we put art on the wall. It inspires us. We think about things. We look at it. You know, I'm a very I'm deeply committed to art, and that art in some ways is transformative to me. Sometimes art brings me to tears. Sometimes it makes me laugh. You know, why not the golden calf? Just like a summer art project to keep the kids busy until Moses comes back. I don't really know the answer to this question, so I myself, I'm confused by it. I don't think that the children of Israel thought that this golden calf was an idol. Also, Aaron made the golden calf, and the people only say, make us a god. And maybe they meant, make us a god, you know, the one that took us out of Egypt. You know, they didn't say, make us a new god, make us a god different than the one that we had, make us a god that's different than the one that we heard at Mount Sinai. They just say, make us a god. We make us a representation even of the God of Israel that we've already been with. All of these things are possible. And also the fact that Moses could have said, or Aaron could have said, you know, the ultimate remark. When they say make us a god, what could he have said? Look at each other. You know, if you really want to see the face of God, and we are said to have been made in the image of God, look at each other. That would have been a more a mature answer than take off your earrings and I'll melt them down for you. I'm skipping ahead. Early the next day, the people, on verse 6, people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being, and they sat down to eat and drink, and they rose to dance. So I'm interested in this little calf that he made. So I was in Turkey once, and I went into the archaeological museum, and in the archaeological museum, there was a glass case, like a vitrine, and it was filled with little calves, little golden calves. And it was in the Hittite exhibition, but there were other exhibitions as well, where they collected golden calves from all over the ancient Near East, and on the case, it said, throne for God. Throne for God, right? So I can only think that that Aaron making the golden calf was an artistic expression of longing for God and hoping that God would come down and sit on the golden calf, right? That they weren't making a God, that they were making a throne for God, and that they still believed that God was going to come down and sit on this throne, and that would be the very God that brought them out of Egypt, and now God would be among them again, because they needed guidance. Otherwise they would have to negotiate the desert, and that was impossible for them to do. God does not agree with my interpretation of this text.
But like it says that build us a God, not build us a throne for God to sit on. They wanted to build a God, not a throne.
No, it doesn't say build, it says make.
Make.
Well, maybe that's the way you make a God. You build the throne and God will come. Oh.
But if
Yeah.
that was their intention, what was wrong with it?
To build even, I don't know. I think it was good. I have a different view of this story than almost everybody else. That's why it's my favorite parsha, because I like the story. I don't think it's a sin. I think that they were building something of beauty, and I love beauty, you know. I don't believe that Judaism should be, as what in the fancy English word is, iconoclastic, breaking images as we believe. We should have been more artistic, more musical. We should thrill at the idea that God would come down and we made something beautiful for God to sit on. That's my genuine view of it. You know, if we want to make an idol, we would have made something that looked like a man. You know, I don't know, or maybe a centaur, like, you know, a half human, half animal, or animal head on a human body. I don't know, something more like that. A griffin. I think this is a kind of an expression of longing and fear, and maybe even love for God to come. I'm going to try and prove this in the next 25 minutes. How are we doing?
Good.
Good? All right. The Lord spoke to Moses, hurry down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely. They've acted badly. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I enjoined upon them. And they have made themselves a molten calf and bowed low to it and sacrificed to it, saying, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. How could that be? How could they have said, this is your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt? They must have said something else. But no, God, verse 9, everybody see me?
Mm-hmm.
The Lord further said to Moses, I see that this is a stiff-necked people, right? They haven't been sleeping well. Their necks are stiff. They need Thai massage. That's not in the text, but I think it's true. Now let me be, that my anger may blaze forth against them, that I may destroy them and make of you a great nation. Really interesting sentence, right? Moses, you're okay, but the rest of the people are gone. And I will make you the generator, not Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but you. But Moses implored God, the Lord is God, saying, let not your anger, O Lord, blaze forth against the people who you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand. Great power and a mighty hand. Gadol biyad chazakah. Let not the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he delivered them, only to kill them off in the mountains and annihilate them from the face of the earth. So this is a complicated dance. Here's Moses, the servant of God. What's he doing?
He's reasoning with the God.
He's reasoning with God. And not only reasoning, but actually fighting back. Robert?
Yeah, calming him down, like saying, you're doing bad. Come on, calm down, man.
Yeah, come on. Or come on, calm down, God. Yeah, not man, but God. Who else did we want to do this? Probably Noah. You know, this is the phrase that I want Noah to say in the beginning of the Bible when God says, I'm going to destroy the earth. What does Noah said? Maybe I'll build a boat. What I want Noah to say is, come on, God, calm down. You know, do it. Or during the time of Abraham when Sodom and Gomorrah are about to go into a blaze, I want Abraham to say to God, calm down. You know, this will look bad. You know, we're a humanity. We can learn, we can change, we can develop, we can clarify our vision. This is all about this. A little bit more. 15, verse 15. Thereupon Moses turned and went down from the mountain bearing the 2 tablets of the pact, tablets inscribed on both of their surfaces as they were inscribed on one side and on the other. The tablets were God's work, and the writing was God's writing incised upon the tablets. In other words, what does Moses have? He's criticizing an object that will become an idol, and he's bringing an object that will become an idol. Either Moses understands that, so he does the regular thing, which is that as soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, I'm on verse 19, he became enraged and he hurled the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain, right? Either he said, look they can't handle a physical representation of God, or he understood that a physical representation would not lead them to an intellectual representation, which is what I think Maimonides really wants him to do. This is the real tension in the narrative right here, between what's the representation of God and what is the inspiration that leads you to an image and a mental wrestling with God, which is the piece that Maimonides would be most interested in. So this is the beginning of this really serious narrative, and then this is really amazing moment. It's go to verse 33. But the Lord said to Moses, he who has sinned against me, let him only will I erase from my record. Now, go now, lead the people where I told you, see, my angel will go before you, but when I make an accounting, I will bring them on account of their sins. So what's this about? This is to say, this is a very harsh idea, which is to say that God says, I was going to come and dwell among you, and now I'm not. Partially because God's saying in other places here as well, look at, I don't want to destroy you. I want to be with you. I want to dwell among you. But the intensity of that experience will be destructive because you won't be able to manage the lifestyle that you need to manage in order to have God in your midst. So I'm going to send you an angel, and the angel will do it, but I will not do it. Unless you really want me to, I will not be able to dwell among you because you'll become a people that's too intense and no one will like you. So I don't know about the Jews so much, actually. I think we maybe are a bit intense, and there's some complexity about that, but that's what I think this is really about. I will send an angel, and I won't do it. If you can go down to chapter 33, see chapter 33? Chapter 33. We're there, I think. Keep going up. Yeah, there. No. No, that's chapter 32. Keep going all the way down. I skipped a lot. No, maybe it is there. It's verse 3 of chapter 33. 1 second. Can you see the text as it goes by?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, this is it. All right, chapter 33, right where it says, a land flowing with milk and honey, but it says, verse 2, I need to back up. I will send an angel before you. I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. But I will not go in your midst, since you are a stiff-necked people, lest I destroy you on the way. So the ultimate punishment is not the destruction of the golden calf. The ultimate punishment is the withdrawal of God, right? The ultimate punishment says, you are human beings, and until you, at such a time, can manage my presence, I'm withdrawing my presence. So you have this very interesting kind of tension, which is the people putting together the golden calf in order to bring God closer. That's my argument, bring God closer. And then God saying, because you did that, I'm going to be further away. So you have a real spatial connection. Good? Comments? All right.
Well, like, what does it mean that lest I destroy you? Like God would get so angry that kill everybody, or what does it mean?
Yeah, you know, I actually think, you know, I thought about this today as I was thinking about what to teach. I don't think it's God's anger, which is a metaphor, right? God doesn't get angry in that way. It's not God, as you remember from the Maimonides class, I don't think that God changes God's emotional temperature because you feel, it's not like that. I think it's more like, you know, why do we have this virus now? You know, I don't know why we have it, of course. I don't know how to get rid of it. I do know it's a natural occurrence. So if we had known more, if we had acted in a different way, maybe if we had worried about climate change, you know, all the things that we would have had to do, we wouldn't have it. And so I kind of think this is more physics than it is anger, emotion. You know, like, you know, is Jewish law physics or is the Jewish law ethics? That's the question for me. If it's ethics, then, you know, you should be good. But if it's physics, then you shouldn't go near God because God is radioactive and you can't survive that. So God, out of compassion, says, look at it, I can only be with you if you follow the rules that I've given and the modes of behavior. Otherwise, it'll be too dangerous to have you in my midst. That's kind of what I think. there are physical consequences for behavior, not just emotional consequences. That's what I think the text is about. What do you think?
I don't quite get it.
Should I say it again, or should I go on? Here's what I want you to get it, actually, because in the next section of this little talk, it'll be important to figure this out. This is a kind of, do you want to be fully mindful and aware of the world, or do you want to be less mindful of the world? If you're fully mindful of the world, the good part is that you see its beauty, but you also see its danger. If you want to be less mindful, then you don't see its beauty, but you also don't see its danger. So this is the part of the Torah, maybe the most explicit part, the clearest part, where God says to us, look at, I thought we were going to have this relationship, but I can only have this relationship if we really have it. If we don't behave in the right way with each other, the relationship will be too dangerous for us to manage. We won't be able to do it. So you have to behave in a certain way, otherwise it's going to be. And if you took that example and you did an analogy with nature, you would say the following. Look there are many secrets in nature. You can get them. And you can get power out of nature that's so strong that you can destroy nature. I hope you won't, but you can. It's not me. I'm not saying, today I've decided to be angry at you and I'm going to destroy you. It's you disturbing nature. There was a physicist named Freeman Dyson. He died last week. He wrote a fantastic book called Disturbing the Universe. I suggest it to everybody. He was a physicist at Princeton. And he writes just exactly that. He says, look anything that you can make, you will make. And so either truth will allow you to destroy the world, or truth will allow you to heal the world. You have to kind of decide, and I suppose that's where we are right now. So I think that this is a metaphor of that. Was that it all clear or not clear? I'll go on and we'll see. Verse 7 of 33. Now Moses would take the tent and pitch it outside the camp at some distance from the camp. And it called the tent of meeting, and whoever sought the Lord out to go into the tent of meeting, that was outside the camp. I'm going to skip ahead here to verse 11. See verse 11? You have to go down. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face. This is the critical line. The Lord speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to another. But actually the phrase in Hebrew is even better. It says, panim el panim kasher yidaber ish el re'ehu, as a person speaks to his friend. And he would then return to the camp, but his attendant, Joshua the son of Nun, a youth, would not stir out of the tent. So how does Moses speak to God? Face to face, like a friend. So Maimonides, this is my, I think I mentioned this maybe in Portros long ago. Maimonides has the idea which says, what is a friend? He says there are three categories of friends. One which is just pleasure, right? Nice to have a friend. You play with them, you go to the movies with them, you chat with them, whatever. Yeah, good, thank you. No, the shade, I think. Yeah, that's better. More? Okay. And the second kind of friend is a practical friend, one that you work with and that you collaborate with. But the third kind of friend is a friend to the good, a friend that you really try and change the world. No, I think it's okay now. A friend that really you move forward and you are acquired. It says in the Mishnah, the first thing that we studied in Portros, that great Mishnah that says, "Aseh lecha rav kaneh lecha chaver." Make yourself a teacher, acquire yourself a friend. This is Moses acquiring God as a friend. And when you acquire a friend, it says, I will learn from that friend. I'm hoping that we'll become friends, all of us in this program. When I learn from that friend, I will be able to see the world through that person's eyes. It won't just be my own vision, it will be that person's vision as well. That's a real acquired friend. Not just a friend to enjoy or a friend to work with, but also a friend in which to see the world in a different way. And when that person is not being themselves, to say to that person, I can see that you're off the track. So then Moses says to God, look at it says, you have singled me out. I'm in verse 12. You have singled me out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor. Now, if you truly gained your favor, pray, let me know your ways, that I may come to know you and continue in your favor. Consider too that this nation is your people. In other words, I would like to see you. It says in Hebrew, I'd like to see your kavod. I want to really engage with you. So verse 17, and the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have asked for you have truly gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name. And he said, oh, let me behold your presence, your kavod. And he answered, I will make all my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim before you the name of God, but the grace that I grant and the compassion that I show. But he says, you cannot see my face, for a man may not see me and live. Which is quite extraordinary comment, right? Because he just said to you, Moses, you see me face to face. And now he says, you can't see me and live. So if you remember, I once explained this by saying, when I look at Lutza, I can see her face. Come a little closer so we can see her face. This is Lutza's face. We can see her. I can see her. But I don't really know what you look like, right? I only know what I think you look like because it's my eyes. But if I stood behind you, so here's the last sentence. The Lord said, see, there's a place near me. Station yourself on the rock, and my presence will pass by. I will put you in the cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take up my hand away, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen. In other words, if I see Lutz's back, turn away. If I see Lutz's back, I can see what Lutz sees. I can relax. As opposed to what I think Lutz looks like. With God, it's not looking to see what I think God looks like, it's to see what I think, how to see the world as if I was seeing the world through God's eyes. As if. That's my mind's understanding. He says, it's not like you see the face of God, God face to face. It's not even the tablets. All of these are devices in order to see the world as if the world was a creation of God. This is a hard thing to do. When we say the Kiddush over the wine on Friday night, we say, Zecher Maaseh Bereshit. Remember creation, the acts of creation, so that we see the whole world as if it was the creation of God. That's the clarity of vision. It's not looking for God, it's looking for the world via God. That's how Maimonides understands that phrase, and that's how I, because of Maimonides, who am I, understand that phrase. I want to do Kabbalat Shabbat for a few minutes. Good, are we all right? Everybody with me? This is my brother Richard calling from Israel. Richard, I have to call you back. Richard? I have to call you back. Love you, wife. Love you. Bye. Yeah, so go to Introduction to the Liturgy of Kabbalat Shabbat. I'm just gonna give you an overview of the Friday night service for a few minutes. Good? Mm-hmm. It's of all the services, most of the services, I gave you this essay by Lawrence Hoffman, very fine teacher of liturgy. Maybe someday we'll get him to teach us. And he mostly says, he completely says that liturgy is a construction. It's a Jewish construction that comes in a very strict form, right? Mostly it came, I gave you the article, you can see it. Mostly it comes from the second post-Christian century. Liturgy prayer, why do we pray on 3 times a day or on Saturday morning or any of the prayers? And they're highly structured. Most of it was at the time of the temple's destruction. People said we can no longer bring sacrifices. How will we worship God? And by the way, how will we atone for our sins? And how will we also petition God? How will we ask God for things that we need? And so the prayers came together. And the prayers are basically a combination between a meditative state It says that the early sages would sit and meditate for an hour before they would pray. Between praise of God, between thanksgiving to God, and between petitioning God. Those three aspects were the parts of the prayer service, and they were very stylized. You also tried to follow the rules of the Bible. So the Bible says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And it says you should say it when you lie down, when you get up. Then you should, of course, pray when you lie down, before you lie down, and as you get up, right? You're following the structure of what the Bible told you in itself. I think that Avital taught us that this was the rabbinic method of constructing a whole new Judaism to replace the one that was no longer available. If you would walk into the temple in Jerusalem and you'd be able to see the kind of, the environment that would hearken God, then after the temple was destroyed, what would you do? You would pray. And by the 4th and 5th century, you would go and pray in a synagogue, and you would pray if you were a man with a quorum of men. This is true for almost all of the services that we have, but it's not actually true for Kabbalat Shabbat. It's not true for the Friday night service. The Friday night service really has two sections. It has the usual section of the evening prayers with a little bit of change in the standing prayer called the Amidah. But the interlude, the prelude to it, is not at all like any of the other prayers. And so, can you put that up?
Which one?
Keep going down, you'll see. That, yeah. Go down, more. This. So the structure on Friday night, if you would go to services in in an hour or whatever, you would see that they have, it's very different than any other place. Go down a little bit more. Can you see it? Yeah, everybody can see?
Yeah.
It's cool. So when you go to the service, you start off with 6 Psalms, Psalm 95 to 99, and then Psalm 29. And these are called the kingship Psalms. And they were put together, they were selected. The Psalms are from ancient times, probably the 2nd pre-Christian century, but they were selected for Friday night only in the 15th century, right? In the land of Israel, in Sfat. And this was a real departure. They'd never put a system of prayer together like this in the past. And these Psalms, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, have one thing in common, which is that they're all praises to God the King, right? They're very male, and they're very almost military. They're fight for us, God. They're have mastery over nature. You can melt mountains. You can make the rivers stand and clap. You can break the cedars of Lebanon. You can do all of these things. This was a real, to select these Psalms was kind of a graphic moment of almost asking God the King to come into the synagogue and be present, right? Most of the time, the prayers, when you read them, you feel like you're going closer and closer to God, but not these Psalms. These Psalms are very much summoning God. God, you're our King. God, you're our warrior. I'm just going to read you a line of it. Let God sing. Let us sing to God. Let us trumpet our rock and our deliverer. Let us come before him with praise, trumpeting with him with songs. God is great, the King greater than all other gods. I don't know what the other gods he had in mind. In his hand are the depths of the earth and the mountainous heights. You can hear, right? You can see it's very strong. Even the next one is almost as strong. Sing a new song to God. Sing to God all the earth. Sing to Adonai. And then it goes right there. Majesty and glory are arrayed before him. Splendor and strength in his temple. You can feel to tell the nations, God is king. Let the world be firm. So you can, in the next one as well, you can hear it. God is king. Let the earth exalt and many islands rejoice. Cloud and darkness surround him. It's really very strong kind of Psalms. sing a new song. He is remembered for his love and faithfulness, but in the end, celebrate God the King. Let the sea thunder along with all that fills it. So you can hear the very strong set of God as King psalms. Then there's a prayer called Anabakar. So you can see the second thing, number 2. This is a new prayer, and it's after the Psalms. And this prayer, which if you read it, it seems kind of innocent, is really an acrostic, right? An acrostic is, when the first letter spells out a word, the first letter of each of the words in a prayer. So this is Anabakar Kadula. This is and it says in the Kabbalistic time, in the 15th century, that if you took the first letter of each of the words of the poem Anabakar, you would get the 42-letter name of God that kind of summoned God into the world. So just one moment of good. People with me? Here it is. So most of the time, direction of Jewish prayer is going up towards God. But this set of prayers, and particularly this little poem called Anabakar, is asking God to come into the world, right? Most of the time going up. The Kabbalists of the 15th and 16th century reversed the direction of prayer. Instead of us going towards God, we're now asking God to come down towards us, and we're asking God to come down as the King and to be the King, right? That's the drama. Every prayer service that we have has a drama in it, and the drama of this Friday night service is asking God to be the King. We're going to sing praises and songs to you, and that you're going to come down. But why? Why is the question? All right. There is a meditation. Now go to the Kagavna.
The what?
The Kagavna. That little poem, this one.
Ah, okay.
The most beloved of all songs, I think, in Jewish tradition is Lecha Dodi. We all sing it. Lecha Dodi, Lekraska, or Lecha Dodi, Lekraska. I can sing it. We have like 500. It's a beautiful psalm, a beautiful song. It was written by Shlomo Alkabetz. We know that he wrote it because he put his name into it. The first letter of each stanza spells out Shlomo Alevi, so that we have some sense. He was also the person that ordained that we stay up and study Torah all night at the holiday of Shavuot. So he was like he lived in Sfat in the 16th century. There was also some evidence that they discovered that they opened coffee bars in Sfat in the 16th century. So they were all drinking coffee. They were kind of wired. They couldn't sleep anyway. So might as well stay up all night and study. And in the Friday night service, in some traditions, mostly the North African Sephardic tradition, they have this section, which I think is really important in explaining it. So here's the drama, right? So far, here's God the King. God is going to come down and be among the people. What does that sound like?
Cool.
Good, right? Although
We know that we can survive.
we might not be able to survive, right? Because we just read in Exodus that God says, I can't really be in your midst, because if I come into your midst, what will happen?
Everyone dies.
It'll be dangerous for you because you won't follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules exactly, then my being in your midst is going to be too intense. And it will blow you apart. Not because I'm mad at you, just that's what my presence will do. You can do lots of different things in your life, but you can't, if you go in the water, after a while, you'll drown, because that's the way the rules go. It's not because we're angry at you, it's because you can't breathe water, and so eventually you'll drown. So to have God come down is very confusing. But now there's another part of this. So maybe go to Lecha Dodi for just 1 second. Yeah, the next one. Go to the next one, then I'll come back to this.
This one?
Yeah.
There.
The top of it. There. So you see the Lecha Dodi there?
Mm-hmm.
it says, come my beloved to greet the bride, the Shabbat presence, let us welcome. Come my beloved to greet the bride, the Shabbat presence, let us welcome. What's that mean? Who's coming on Shabbat? Some kind of bride. The bride for who?
Shabbat.
Maybe the bride for God.
Can you hear me?
What's that?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Natalia.
Shabbat Shalom, hi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
You're just saying hello or you had something to say?
No, I just join you right now because then I cannot hear very well. So there was the question about the bride in Shabbat, yes?
Yes. So Lecha Dodi, the song Lecha Dodi, that one, it's about come the bride, come my beloved, let us go to the field, let us lodge in the villages. It comes from the tractate of and the Talmud of Shabbat. It says Rabbi Hanina robed himself and stood at sunset of Shabbat Eve and exclaimed, come and let us go forth and welcome the Queen Shabbat. And Yanai donned his robes on Shabbat Eve and exclaimed, come, O bride, come, O bride. What were they looking for? The rabbis of the Talmud or even in Sfat?
Is she representing time?
Maybe she is representing time. Or maybe she's representing even more than that. Maybe she's representing a part of God that the Kabbalists felt was in exile. Maybe she's representing a piece of that they felt that God had in some ways fallen into pieces, the male aspects of God and the female aspects of God. Go to the chart. The Spirot, that one. Very good. First, I'd like to tell you what an excellent teaching assistant Lucy is. That's good right there.
Hi.
You see, everybody see it?
Yeah.
All right, so you see at the bottom, it says Yesod. This is not a full explanation of the Kabbalah, but the beginning of one. It says foundation or tzaddik or covenant or phallus or Joseph. Phallus is the male sexual organ, right? So this was like a chart of God. It was like a psychology of God. It was a piece of imagination of what the tree of God looked like, of the 10 Sefirot, of these bowls that captured the essence of God as God poured into the world. Remember, I said most of prayer, we go up towards God, but in this moment, God comes down towards us. And God, you see the channels between the different circles? These are not lines, these are actually channels. These are actually tubes. And the light is going to come down from above, and it will come all the way down. But when it gets to Yesod, you see Yesod near the bottom. Everybody shake your head if you see it. Yeah? You see Yesod.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time it would then go back into the world. And Malchut, the Shekhinah, see where it says kingdom Shekhinah, right on the most bottom sphere? Everybody see it? It would be, and it says Shekhinah, Assembly of Israel, Earth, Moon, Queen, Apple Orchard. Remember Apple Orchard? What's the Apple Orchard? The tree of knowledge from all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And Rachel, this was the female presence of God. This was the Shekhinah. So all of the light would come down, but and it would come into the world, and then God would be in our midst. Was it good to have God in your midst? Maybe yes, maybe no. It was good if he didn't blow you apart. It was bad if you did get blown apart. So here comes the flow of God from the very top of the imagination of God, Keter, the crown, all the way down through all of these different channels into the world. But what happens? As long as the temple was standing in Jerusalem and the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, was there, you could go to the temple on Friday night and you could see God actually present in the world. You could feel the presence of God pouring in the world. After the temple is destroyed, what happened?
Yeah, they start
that the Shekhinah was now in exile. Now all of a sudden the female part of God was broken apart from the male aspect of God. And when the female part was broken apart from the aspect of God, when the healing light, when the power of God, when the presence of God was pouring into the world, what would happen at the level of Yesod? It would stop. Now, where did the Shekhinah go? The tradition was that the Shekhinah, the female presence of God, was exiled when Israel was exiled, and the Shekhinah was living on the other side of the river Sambatyon, which was a river that blocked that aspect of God coming in. It's really an elaborate myth. I'm just going to give you the beginning of it. And that river was filled with fire. But can you kindle fire on Shabbat? No. You're not allowed to kindle fire on Shabbat. So as soon as Shabbat would come, the fires of the river would die down. Sorry, that was a sneeze. Don't get nervous.
Yeah.
Other side of the internet. Only Lutza should be, worried about sneeze.
Yeah. We worry about Lutza actually as well.
I sneezed away from you.
She'll be protected.
She'll be protected. So the flow of God is coming down from Chesed and Bin and Tiferet, all the ones you can see above, into the world, except that she, the aspect of God which is feminine, has been in exile. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing by L'Chadodi is we're welcoming her. So it's not just we're bringing God down, we're welcoming the female part of God to also come. We're saying, welcome back, O God, O bride, so that you can be we'll all be in the presence together on this very high mountain in Tzfat, and we can have a great union. And then you read, in some places, you read this section. With this, I'll finish. Go back up. See? When they are united above, so does she unite below in the mystery of one. To be with them above, one corresponds to one. What's that sentence about? Very complicated sentence. When all of these sphirot, right? Remember the circles that I just showed you?
Yeah.
When they're united above, so does she, Shechina, the one below, unite with the mystery of one. What's the mystery of one? That the whole universe is one. That to see the face of God is to see anywhere. That God is everywhere, and that the universe, the nature is God. The Blessed Holy One above, does not sit upon his throne of glory until she becomes, by in the mystery of one, like him, to be one with one. In other words, what does she become? She becomes the feminine aspect, and she is now going to receive God coming in. It's this kind of Friday night on Kabbalat Shabbat is this erotic union of God above, the masculine aspects of God, with the female aspects of God below. And we'll have this erotic moment just at this moment of the service, just after L'Chadodi, because we've now welcomed the king with the first Psalms. Please, King, come. Come be our ruler. Come be the king of Israel, the king of the world, the king of nature. And now here's the Shechina, the female aspect, all come together, and via the mystery of one, you are going to be one. The mystery of one is the erotic relationship that's happening in the whole universe at that time. That's why we even have an erotic meal on Shabbat, a beautiful wine and candle lighting and even a braided bread, so you can have all of that in your mind. This mystery of Shabbat, she is Shabbat, united in the mystery of the one, so that the mystery of one may settle upon her. Right? What's happening? At this very moment, because of Shabbat, the Shechina is out, and the Shechina is now uniting with the world, and in all that, we become part of the mystery of Shabbat and the mystery of one. This is the significance of the prayer for the entrance of Shabbat. L'Chadodi l'Krat Kala. And then the Holy Throne is united in the mystery of the one. So remember my understanding of the golden calf from chapter 32 of the book of Exodus is that the people weren't really making a god, they were making a throne, right? So that God could come and sit on the throne. And I think that actually what we do on Friday night is similar to what that is. It's actually similar to that, which is that we, with our song, with our consciousness, with our beings, with our whole sense, and you could see it if we were in Odessa this week and we went to the Litvischer Shul or the Chabad Shul, you'll see them almost acting this out, which is this kind of yearning and longing and dancing, a wedding dance, right in the middle of the service. In the Litvischer Shul, they would have, right in a few minutes, if they're still going tonight, they'll dance a circle, which is a wedding dance for actually the wedding between the bride and queen of Shabbat, the Shechina, and the king Yesod of Shabbat coming together. And when Shabbat answers, she unites and separates herself from the other. Go down a little bit. From the other side, which is the side of evil, the side of all the things that kept her out, called the Sitra Achra. All judgments removed from her, and she remains united in holy radiance adorned by the many crowns of the Holy King. You can see it's really beautiful images, I think. All powers of wrath and masters of judgment all flee, right? All the wrath of the world and the wrath of the weak and the judgments on who you are and everything is now gone, because there's unity between all the aspects of God, and the healing light of God is flowing back into the world. This world in which the male aspect and the female aspects are now at once. Her face shines in supernal radiance, and she is adorned below by the holy people. It says in the chapter that we read this Shabbat, in chapter 34, you should read it, that when Moses came out of this union with God, right, when he goes up and asks God to see God, and God says, "Look at my back, and you can see my effulgence, my glory go by you. Hashem, Hashem, the glory of God." Then Moses is so illuminated by that he has to wear a cover. And this is the same thing. Her face shines with supernal radiance, and she is adorned below by the holy people, all of whom are adorned by new souls. So on Shabbat, what do you get? You get a new soul. You get because of this union, all the new souls that you need for this one day of the week are coming down, and you get to have them. Then beginning prayer, blessing her with joy and beaming faces, say, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, God who is blessed. So on Friday night, unlike all the other services, you don't say all the regular ones. You're actually participants in this drama of the king and the queen coming together and being together during this one time. And so, in some ways, you can feel the most beloved moment of the week is this moment of drama, because this moment of drama is the moment in which all the aspects of God come into alignment. And so that's why I always feel that Shabbat is in alignment. We've had a very difficult week in the world. I hope that this Shabbat will open it up, and that whole world will go back into alignment. The viruses will go back to where the viruses are supposed to be. The people will get to go where the people want to go. God will be in God's heaven. The Shekhinah will be out of exile, and we'll all be aligned together.
May I ask the question?
Please.
So what is happening with the Shekhinah after Havdalah?
So the reason that that the Kabbalists give for smelling the spices and for is to shock you, almost like
I know,
smelling salts, because the Shekhinah is leaving, right? So the soul that we got for Shabbat is leaving with the Shekhinah, going back into exile. So Havdalah comes, and the wall of fire goes back up, and the Shekhinah decouples from who you are, and the Yisham and Yetera, the extra soul that you get for Shabbat, is gone. And so you need to drink a cup of wine, or at least a strong drink, to kind of like settle yourself down, because you're now going to go into the world of work, until the next Shabbat, when Shekhinah will come back. It's in some ways, it's an oscillation between a day of paradise and a day and 6 days of work.
So she's like in a nomadic motion.
That's right. I feel that. Now, of course, that means that it's a kind of a middle way between trying to live in paradise all the time, the way some religions do, and believing that you're never in paradise, or you have to wait for it till you die. So that the image of it is that you'll spend a day in paradise with God in your midst, even though that's a dangerous state of affairs. The other 6 days a week you won't, and you can and you live mortal life.
So, but you said also at the beginning that Shekhinah is like this female proportion of the Shabbat, which I understand with the Lechadodi and so on. So actually, she is representing also, like, of course, the peace and the Shabbat, and when we are not working. But then it's also like very, I would say, like nomadic and working through all this circle. Yeah. So it's like,
I suppose the Shekhinah being with you, Shabbat, it says, is a 60th of paradise, 60th of the world to come. So I agree. I think the shocking part of it's a myth, right? But it's for me, a compelling myth is that you lose this kind of time apart, and you go back into the world, and you've experienced the breakup of the Shekhinah with the rest of God. Some people think it's the Shekhinah comes into marriage with the people of Israel, But even that means that once every week you break up that marriage between the Shekhinah. At least the Shekhinah goes away, and you're living apart for the week. You know, and I don't know. I sometimes experience the world with that brokenness to it, and I sometimes long for the world to come together. No one could miss right now that the world feels pretty broken.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I wonder if you know, in the piece that Lawrence Hoffman wrote that I sent to you, he's going to talk about the political aspects of the construction of this part of the service. He says that some of the politics was the memory of the persecutions and the brokenness of the people, so that you would have that in your almost in your DNA as you went through life, and that was the political decision, and that you kept it even after the brokenness was over. So even after the Babylonian exile, you still remembered exile. Even after the Egyptian you know, Exodus, you still remembered Exodus. Even after the destruction of the Crusaders, you still remember the Crusaders, all the way on. One of the poets that we know about from Odessa is Chaim Nachman Bialik, and he wrote a poem called "The City of Slaughterers," which is about the Chmelnytsky massacre, I think. And he's pointing a finger both also at us. He says that you're addicted to this. You know, you're addicted to this persecution. You know, this is a disaster, but you're a part of that disaster. You haven't moved forward to try and prevent the next disaster. Michael Stanislavski knows much more about that poem than I do, but that is how I read it. It's a very long poem. That is how I read the poem. The parts that I remember the most are the parts of the accusation, that we have stored up all of this this memory.
Okay.
My time is up. Thank you.
What I would suggest that I will try using the technology to put you in smaller groups. So you will have a few minutes, like 5-7 minutes, to talk to each other. Many of you, some of you are from Poland, some of you are from Hungary, some of you meet all the time, some of you doesn't. So we felt that it would be important to give you a few moments to catch up, to speak about how was this learning for you. Then, shall we light candles?
No, not yet.
Not yet. And then we will have Michael Stanislavski from 5:30 teaching us the next part.
The sun is shining hard in the sky.
So
This is so impressive.
well, we see if it works or not. 3